Video games you've maybe never heard of. Today, Franbow. Franbow is a dark puzzle-solving adventure game that takes place in 1944. Fran is a 10-year-old who is admitted to an asylum after witnessing her parents' death. Unfortunately, her best friend in the world, a black cat named Mr. Midnight, is still out there somewhere, and Fran is determined to be reunited with him. In this game, you make your way out of the asylum as well as in and out of reality. Since the main character is a 10-year-old who just experienced a major traumatic event, it's difficult to tell which events are reality or Fran's coping mechanisms. This line gets blurrier and blurrier until we are in full Alice in Wonderland level nonsense. I'm putting a blanket trigger warning over the beginning of this game since every child in the asylum has problems, but after you get out of the asylum it's pretty chill. Well, maybe not chill, but it becomes nightmare-inducing instead of trauma-inducing, so that's something. It's about 8 hours of gameplay, $15 on Steam, and I give it 9 out of 10. Video games you've maybe never heard of. Today, What Remains of Edith Finch. This is a game where you uncover the story of the Finch family through Edith's eyes. Allegedly, there is a curse that all family members will have an early and unusual death. In this game, you explore the old Finch house as you reminisce about your own life and discover how each of your family members died. These stories are told through flashback-style minigames, and each one has a drastically different art and playstyle. It's apparent after the first flashback that you are not going to be able to take these stories at face value. There are things that happen that probably could not have really happened. But it's hard to tell whether these misrepresentations are because of the age of the storyteller, or the mental well-being of the person about to die, or something else, like maybe it really did happen. This game sounds like it belongs in the horror genre, but it has more of a bittersweet feel, and I highly recommend it. It's $20 on Steam, I give it 8 out of 10. Video games you've maybe never heard of. Today, Lumino City. Lumino City is an indie-developed puzzle-solving game. Every single thing in this game, besides the characters, was handmade, usually with a combination of paper, cardboard, and glue. The game plays with camera angles and forced perspective to add confusion as to where you're allowed to go. Typically in video games, things that you can interact with are animated differently than things that are just background elements, but since this game is more filmed than animated, there's an added level of difficulty in figuring out what you're even allowed to do. But this game has an interesting mechanic if you get stuck. You can pull out your granddad's handy manual and solve a math problem to get the right answer. But this isn't a cop-out, sometimes just finding all the variables to plug into the equation is also difficult. Also, this game was designed to create awareness about renewable energies. Just about everyone you encounter is having a power crisis, and most puzzles you solve have to do with introducing greener options. I was frustrated with this game a lot. I think there's a good reason video games are created with computers and not physical sets, but I'm glad that I played this game just because of how unique it is. It's $13 on Steam, I gave it 4 out of 10. Video games you've maybe never heard of. Today, Inside. Inside is a 2D puzzle-solving platformer. The soundtrack and camera work are immaculate, and the puzzles are never very difficult to solve, but what makes this game is the story. You play as a young boy in a dystopian horror setting, and there is no dialogue, no prologue, no explanations. This is so unusual for a video game that it adds to the uneasiness you feel while playing. Every time you think you have a gist of what's going on, you get to the next section, and that's the fuck was that shit? At the end of this game, you will sit in silence for a half hour trying to comprehend what the hell that was about. The playtime for this game is about 3 hours and it's $20 on Steam. That might be a little pricey for how short the game is, but throw it on your wishlist and wait for it to go on sale because this game is unlike anything I have ever played. 9 out of 10. Video games you've maybe never heard of. Today, Zork. Zork is a text-based adventure game written in the late 70s. It was originally released in 3 installments, but the game you play nowadays is something that has elements of all 3. It's a text-based game. You read a description of where you are, and you type out what you want to do. The text parser is surprisingly good. You'll want to use cardinal directions when talking about where you want to walk, but apart from that, anything you want to do, just type it. You play as an adventurer, and your goal is to explore the world around you and fight a couple monsters. If you like Dungeons & Dragons, you could really get into this game. Zork is very difficult. Personally, I've never finished it, but it's still really fun. It can be kind of intimidating at first because the mechanics aren't going to be like anything you've ever done before, but I highly recommend trying it for at least a half hour. It's free to play online in a lot of different places. Just Google Zork online and you'll find it. I give it 5 out of 10.